Welcome to writing clean Pythonic code with named tuples. My name is Christopher, and I will be your guide. In this course, you will learn about named tuples, in particular, how to create them with the collection's named tuple factory, defining default values for your named tuple, using built-in utility methods and attributes, making your code more Pythonic by using named tuples, deciding on when to use named tuples versus other data structures, and how to extend named tuples. Tuples are built-in Python data types that specify an ordered sequence of data attributes. Conceptually, they're similar to lists, but unlike lists, tuples are immutable. A named tuple is an extension to tuples that is found in the collections module. They add some features to tuples. For example, the parts of a named tuple are, well, named. This means the data inside the tuple can be accessed like the attribute of a class using dot notation. Each named tuple automatically comes with some utility methods and extra fields. This allows you to do things like create new instances of an immutable object based on your existing one. And like tuples, named tuples are very memory efficient. In fact, named tuples use no more memory than regular tuples themselves. At the core of it, being able to name a field in a tuple makes your code more readable. Consider these variables, person_index2 and person.middlename. The second one is far easier to understand within the context of your code. Next up, I'll dive in and show you how to create and manipulate named tuples. In the previous lesson, I gave an overview of the course. In this lesson, I'll show you how to create and use a named tuple. Named tuples are an extension to the built-in tuple type. Everything you can do with the base data type can be done with the named variant. In addition to that, a named tuple treats its members as attributes, giving you the ability to name the parts of the tuple and access them using dot notation. To create a named tuple, you use a factory function. This factory is found inside of the collections module and is called, understandably enough, named tuple. The factory takes two required arguments. The first is a string giving the factory the name the created class will use. And the second is a specifier for the names of the attributes in the tuple. This argument has several different formats. You can give it a string where each field name is separated by a space, a string where each field name is separated by commas, or any kind of iterable where each item in the iterable is the name of a field. For example, you can give it a tuple or a list with the attribute names inside of it. Let's go play with named tuples in the REPL. Consider a regular old tuple. Here, I've created a tuple that represents a point in a grid where the x value is 2 and the y value is 4. When I show the contents of the tuple, I see the 2 and 4 in parentheses. I can access the pieces of the tuple using index notation. With the square brackets here, I've accessed the first item in the tuple. Like all iterables in Python, tuples are zero-indexed, so the first position is denoted as 0. Tuples are immutable. Trying to change part of the tuple results in an error. You've probably seen all this before. Let's take a look at the named variation. Named tuples are found in the collections module and created with a factory. Here I've imported the factory function. Now I'll create a named tuple class. Note, this is creating the class, not an instance object. The first argument tells the factory that the underlying class will be named P point. The second argument tells the factory that I want two attributes in the class, the first named x and the second y. Note that I've named the class using a capital letter to be consistent with Python style guidelines about class declaration. If I examine the class in the REPL, it shows me that this is a class in the Dunder main module with the name point. With the class in place, I can create an instance object the same way I would with any other class. I've overwritten my regular tuple, also named point, with a named tuple instead. Looking at the value in the REPL, and it looks like a class instance, which it is. The result of the type function is the same as the class a few lines above. It is still a tuple though. The whole point of a named tuple is you can access the attributes of the tuple using the names in the factory. There's the first value from the field called x, and the second value in a field called y. And since it is a tuple, you can still use positional access as well. Like I said, it's still a tuple, and like a tuple, it is immutable. Instead of a type error, you get an attribute error, but either way, setting a value isn't allowed. There's a subtle thing here. The named tuple itself is immutable, but it can store mutable objects. This can feel a little weird. Let me show you a couple of examples of what I mean. I'm going to create a new named tuple that represents the name of a person and the name of their kids. Capital P person is now a class with two attributes, name and kids. I intend to store a list of names in the kids value, and that's where things get a little funky. Kids can do that to you. Meet John. John is my first instance of person. John has two kids, Sally and Tim. Since this is a named tuple, I can get at John's name through the name attribute. I should say name at least one more time in that sentence. This attribute is immutable. I'm not allowed to change it. John is John. If I want Bob, I need a new tuple. Likewise, if I want to change the kids. Kids are an attribute, just like name, and trying to assign it to something else has the same problem as the name. But kids is a list, which is a mutable object. That means I can do things to it. As long as I don't attempt to change what kids is referencing, I'm good. John can have more kids. In fact, anything you do to a list, you can do to John's kids, including removing all the items. You just can't point the kids attribute at a new list. This can be a bit confusing in practice. I generally try to avoid it when I'm coding. Although it is legal, it feels counterintuitive to me and might be surprising to someone who is new to named tuples. Before moving on, let's spend a bit more time with the factory and learn the different ways you can specify the attributes of a named tuple. You've seen this before. I've created a point with x and y. And there's an instance. Instead of using a string with spaces to specify the attributes, you can use an iterable. This results in the same thing. I kind of like this version. It feels clearer to me. If you like the string style but prefer to use comma-separated values, you can do that instead. This variant can be handy if you're processing CSV files whose first line is the column names in the data. I'll be playing with CSV files in a later lesson in the course. The list example I showed you before is actually a specific of the general case. Anything iterable will work. Here, I'm using the for loop to iterate on the string. Iterating on a string returns the letters, so I get two fields, one named x and the other y. This is the least clear of the variations, but it shows that if you can provide an iterable of attribute names, you can create a named tuple. I'll be doing that in the CSV example I was talking about later. There are some restrictions on attribute names. You can't name an attribute anything starting with an underscore. This is a safety feature. There are utility methods and fields on the class that might cause name clashes. So to keep the attributes distinct from the utilities, all the utilities begin with an underscore. I'll show you these a little bit later. You also can't name any of the attributes a Python keyword. This restriction actually applies to classes in general. Named tuple here is just keeping you compliant with Python syntax. The final thing I'm going to show you in this lesson is a few variations on how to name your arguments when creating an instance. Let me just re-establish our goToPoint class here. Little deja vu to remind you one way of creating an instance. Here I used positioned to specify the arguments. Like any other class constructor, you can name it explicitly instead. The results are the same as before. Because of this mechanism, you can also use the double star keyword args mechanism to create instances as well. I've created a dictionary here with the keys being the names of the arguments to point and the values being my data. I can then use the double star keywords mechanism to create an instance based on the dictionary arguments. And I get the same kind of data as a result. This particular mechanism can be handy if you're dealing with data from outside sources, like parsing some JSON. I've shown you how to create named tuple classes using the factory found in collections. The factory has optional arguments that give you even more control over your class. In the next lesson, I'll show you those. In the previous lesson, I showed you how to create a named tuple class using the factory found in the collections module. In this lesson, I'll introduce you to the optional arguments to the named tuple factory. The named tuple factory function has some optional arguments that give you finer-grained control on your resulting class. With them, you can automatically rename attributes that have illegal names, specify default values for certain fields, and override the default module name of Dunder main. Let's check these out in the REPL. One use of a named tuple is to represent fields in a data record. When you do this, you might be reading that data and the names of the fields for that data from a third-party system. That might be a file or a database, but either way, it is something where you may not be in control of the field names. You saw in the previous lesson that there are some restrictions on attribute names for a tuple. There's a way around this in case you aren't the one specifying your field names. I'll start by importing the factory. And now I'm going to create a string with some illegal column names in it, simulating the field names coming from somewhere else. Underscore ID isn't legal because of the underscore. Class isn't legal because it's a keyword, and two attributes can't have the same value. Using this variable as the list of attributes would fail for several different reasons. My attempt at creating a passengers class causes a value error. It's kind of interesting that it found the keyword as the first problem rather than the underscore. It's a bit revealing about the underlying implementation. Anyway, to get around this problem, you can use the rename argument to the factory, setting it to true. This time, the passenger class was created. Let's create a passenger. And now I'll look at them. Notice that the three fields that had problem names have special names in this tuple, using underscore position. Since you can't create fields with leading underscores, these are guaranteed not to clash with other fields. This isn't the prettiest solution, as you're losing the naming feature and essentially back to a hack on positional access, but it does mean your data processing code doesn't have to change. You can stick with the column names of your file or database. In addition to renaming fields, you can also provide a default value for them. You do this with the defaults argument to the factory. Here, I've specified two defaults, the values junior and Python. The defaults lists start from the right-hand side of the arguments. This named tuple has three fields. Giving it 2 defaults means the first argument is required and the second and third have default values. This feels a bit messy to me. I'm not sure that if I hadn't read the instructions that I'd expect this behavior, but it is similar to how you specify default values to the arguments of a function. For example, in a function with 3 arguments, you can't only give the second one a default. Let me create an instance of a developer. And since I only specified the name, the Junior and Python defaults get applied. As the name implies, they're only defaults, and since they get applied in order, when I give 2 arguments to the constructor, only the level attribute uses the default value. In the previous lesson, when I showed you the type of the class returned from the namedtuple factory, you saw that the module name was dunder main. That's 2 underscores main and then 2 underscores. Some Python tools can get particular about the module name. Pickling, for example, cares about it. If you need to work in this space, the namedtuple factory gives you a way to override the module name for the resulting class. Before I show you how to do this, just a quick side note. Dunder module on a class tells you what module the class is found in. Let me show you an example. I'm choosing ordered dict because it's a class from a module. And there's the dunder module attribute. The namedtuple factory allows you to set this value to whatever you like. You do this with the module argument to the factory. I've set this one to custom. And when I look at the class, it shows as being part of the custom module. Just like the ordered dict example, I can see this in the dunder module attribute. Namedtuple classes also come with utility methods and attributes. I'll show you these in the next lesson.